Early Weigh-In podcast is back. 1 week away from UFC 300, making a pit stop at the Apex for UFC Vegas 90. We've got a 13-fight card. Would you be shocked if it was headlined by middleweights at the Apex yet again? We got Brendan Allen taking on Chris Curtis. Rematch from, I think, 2021, where Chris Curtis got the best of him. Excited to see that run back. And in our co-main event, Alexander Hernandez trying his hand at 145 again to take on Damon the Leech Jackson. Pretty solid fight night, honestly. I don't think going to have that too many bets, but I honestly think we might have a pretty violent card. I think we're up for a lot of finishes. Excited to get down to business with you. I know we both on the wrong side of things last week, but no big losses. Go ahead and let you quickly recap that. Man, we'll jump into this card.
Yeah, certainly a forgettable night for the both of us. You entered in the co-main and the main event, profiting the whole card.
I know.
And that ended up being the two that missed and ended up putting you in the negative. You had Aaron Blanchfield for 2.3 units and Vicente Luque for 1.15 units. Aaron Blanchfield, it is what it is. I also thought that she was going to win. I bought into the hype. She's so young. She's got a ton of room for improvement. I think that'll be a gift of a line 3 years from now, Vicente Luque, that's about as close to a fixed fight as I've ever seen, dude. It was just weird. A weird decision for a veteran like Vicente Luque.
Yeah, to get stuck on bottom like that. Not even. I mean, it's almost like he could have pushed off. He
didn't push off the hips at all. He started striking from the bottom. It didn't make any sense. Chris Weidman. I hope that he's talked. I saw him on maybe Ariel today or something. He said that he's down to run it back with Bruno Silva. I thought that he was winning the fight, but it would be nice to kind of put a stamp on that fight. And that's a decent matchup for Chris Weidman at 100%. This point in his career.
Right.
So I don't hate that fight for him. And I doubt that you get as good of a line as you played right there at plus 215. We both took a shot on Weidman sub. I thought that was kind of his win condition, but it turns out
he can strike with him.
Yeah, he's still got a little bit in the tank, dude. I like that. I think we were both on McGee rounds 2 and 3. People were talking about, his game plan, but truthfully, I think that he was trying to do the right game plan. He just didn't have the wrestling to get the fight to the mat. And Chitty looks awesome. I don't know. No USADA, 170-pound Chitty at 36 years old. He looked really good. Didn't seem to slow down at all.
Yep.
Good win for him for sure. All right. One of your biggest plays of the night, the over 1.5 rounds in the Bazooka Matthews fight. I think that one was a little closer than
I almost played the over 2.5, man. So close to it.
Yeah. Good choice taking the juice at minus 320. And parlaying it with the under 2.5 in the Aslan Turkalj fight. Another one, probably too close for comfort.
For sure.
But both ended up cashing quick 1.5 units there. You knew Herbert Burns was going to quit. Certainly wish I would have gotten in on this one. Arce round 2 plus 430 for a unit. And then minus 0.82 units on the night. Looking over at my card, I won't go over all of them, but I had a lot of similar spots to you. I had my one big underdog shot on Angel Pacheco. It hit the plus 400 mark. And after watching that fight, I thought he fought for my money. There were a couple of times where he, caught Loughran with some good shots, but Loughran's just young and still got a chin on him and got a pretty solid gas tank. I hedged that bet with the over 2.5 rounds. I know it seemed like that probably shouldn't have hit, but Pacheco had shown that he's as durable as they come. He's as tough as they come. And so I liked that plus money hedge for that fight. Andre Petroski, Jacob Malkoun, fight doesn't go the distance. I thought that Malkoun was going to get the TKO. I didn't expect it to happen the way that it did. I actually thought that he'd end up just breaking Petroski over the course of 3 rounds. If he didn't get submitted early by Petroski. Yeah. Petroski always has that early sub, being as strong as he is. Yeah. Nate Landwehr, Jamal Emmers. I took a couple of Nate Landwehr by sub in round 2 or 3, but the fight doesn't go the distance. He's going to bring the pace. He's a kill or be killed type of fighter. He almost got killed early. So I just ended up taking the plus 100. Fight doesn't go the distance. I thought that was a solid bet. lost on the sub round 2 and round 3, lost on McGee round 2 and round 3, McGee sub round 2 and round 3. My worst bet on the card, the one I really do wish that I had back, would have put me positive if I could have laid off of it. Tried to get cute, play Bill Algeo, who's not that great of a fighter, and I'm trying to play his decision prop. Like, he's still got to get through 15 minutes, and he always has close fights. Certainly wish that I had that one back. Cedriques Dumas versus Nursultan Ruzaboyev. Fight ends by sub. Man, that's one that I think it should have been a no contest.
Yeah, dude, that was even more than the Weidman one.
Right. Another one where it's just like, that's MMA for you. Sometimes I get the swings in my direction. The Weidman by sub, and then another solid bet. I like this one. The Blanchfield for Furo goes to decision at plus money. Both those girls are tough as hell.
Right.
Like that. And minus 0.49 units. Forgettable night for sure, but considering the way the fights played out, the judges and everything else, I thought that it was kind of nice that both of us came out relatively unscathed.
Yeah. With you.
All right, so moving on to the first fight of this Saturday's card. It takes place in the women's bantamweight division, where we see Melissa "No Mess" Mullins taking on Nora Cornolle. So Nora is coming off of a win over Jocelyn Edwards. Jocelyn Edwards racked up like 5 takedowns, 8 minutes of control time, and still did not get the nod. Melissa Mullins, like, her game plan is pretty simple. She likes to get the fight to the mat and throw some really heavy ground and pound. I think that she has a significant finishing. She has much more of a finishing upside than Jocelyn Edwards did. And if she can get the fight to the same positions that Edwards had it, I think that she has a lot more potential to get the finish. You got the under 2.5 at plus 210 right now on DraftKings. The knockout, though, for Melissa Mullins is plus 450 on BetOnline. And I'm curious to see where that line opens on the domestic books. Because if I could get like a plus 500 on Mullins TKO, I mean, that's half of her fights win conditions. I think that she's going to get the fight where she needs it to be. And beating Irina Alexieva. Alexieva hasn't proven much, but she's a dog, man. So I thought that was a solid win for women's bantamweight, unranked women's bantamweight. That's about as good of a win as you're going to get. Give me Melissa Mullins. I would never, ever lay minus 350. But give me some of those inside the distant props. I do think that she has a significant advantage here. I'd love to see her get it done.
Yeah, we see the fight pretty similar, man. I watched that fight back with Jocelyn Edwards, and to hear 2:30.27s for Cornolle is absolutely insane to me. It's up there with one of the worst scorecards I've ever seen in my life. She's a pretty good striker, though, man. She causes damage on the feet. She's pretty powerful, but pretty clear that she has absolutely nothing off her back. Takedown defense is super poor. And, now she's not in Paris in the home crowd, making the long flight over here to Vegas, and already 34 years old at this point as well. I see the biggest advantage in this fight being, Melissa's advantage on the mat, just like yourself. She very, like you said, compared to Jocelyn Edwards, way more finishing upside. She likes to pass position, get on top, land ground and pound. I think she holds more finishing upside here, but Cornolle's a powerful girl on the feet as well. So I'm all over wanting to play the under 2.5, doesn't go the distance, something like that with you at plus 200. You talked about the Irina Alexieva fight, but even before that, beating Daria, Zenolikova or whoever who fought a couple weeks ago. She's a pretty, the girl finishes a lot of her fights in the first round, and Melissa was able to take her punishment, find her way on top, and finish the fight relatively quickly. So I'm with you, man. I think I'm going to probably likely find a position on that under as well. Glad to see you lining up there with me.
Something to keep in mind is that at least professionally, we've never seen Mullins get a finish outside of that first round. She might lose a little bit of that finishing power, like we've seen in a lot of fights where once that first flurry happens, we kind of see him die down or the finishing ability go down. And I figure that round 1 TKO, that's how she's getting all of her wins. That might be an even juicier prop to look at if we both like the under.
You could see it probably being north of 1,000, man, for a women's fight. And
round 1 TKO for what?
Yeah.
I think that might be the spot.
I like it, man. Moving on to up a couple weight classes, men's middleweight division, we have Dylan Budka taking on Cesar Almeida. No, man, I don't think I have the clearest read on this fight. I think it's a pretty binary one where Dylan Budka would love to get this fight down to the mat. Cesar Almeida love to keep it standing. I think Dylan Budka, I kind of always favor the grappler in these type of matchups. I think he's a bit sharper on the cardio. Sorry for the little mess up there, man. I always favor the grapplers here in these type of matchups, typically when the line's close. He's also 12 years younger. I think he probably has a bit better cardio in this position. I just feel like he's going to push a pace and likely find a way to grind out Cesar Almeida. But, I do think Cesar Almeida holds a huge advantage on the feet. You talk about his kickboxing background. It's just when you look at how the guys that he's fought in MMA, his first 3 opponents are 0-0, 0-0, and 5-28. This guy has not really been tested as far as his MMA skills go. And I don't think he's really been tested against a caliber. I'm not saying Dylan Budka is just a stud wrestler or anything, but I don't think he's been tested as much as he's going to get tested in the grappling on Saturday. So no real pick here with conviction, but I kind of do lean the wrestler and Dylan Budka.
Yeah, you see, Cesar Almeida has fought Alex Pereira a couple of times and managed to go the distance, not get finished with him. And You're not seeing the same type of path to the title, if you will, for Cesar Almeida. They're immediately starting him off with somebody who's going to test his wrestling defense. And I think that this is certainly more of a sit back and gain some information on somebody like Almeida, who's shown like a ton of potential, as much potential as we'd seen in Pereira in his 4-0 record coming into the UFC. So this is just an excellent litmus test to see where he's at and if he can move forward in the 185-pound division. Budka, I think he's going to need a clean 15-minute performance, and this fight's starting on the feet every single round. It's not a position that I would want to lay minus 160. If I was going to play Dylan Budka, I'd play his decision prop at
I'm with you.
Let's see what it's at. Budka by decision plus 190. That sounds a whole lot better than trying to lay minus 160 in a fight that I don't see a lot of finishing potential. Cesar Almeida in his last fight, I think he got taken down quite a few times. I could be wrong. The Lucas Fernando, he got taken down quite a bit, I think, but kind of matched in control time. And, that's just tells me that he's able to work even when he is getting taken down. And like I said, I think this is just a good sit-back fight, Budka by decision, and see if Cesar Almeida has what it takes to compete at this caliber of the UFC. Moving up the card down a few weight classes to the men's bantamweight division. Jean Matsumoto taking on Dan Argueta. Matsumoto, 14-0, 24 years old. We saw him come off the Contender Series win over Casey Tanner. And this is, another fight that I just don't really love laying the juice on a guy that I don't have much to go off of. I don't know what he looks like against higher level competition. And Dan Argueta, while he'll probably never touch gold in his career, he is a dog. He'll wrestle. He's got a good gas tank, and I think that he's about average everywhere. You're going to have a full game plan to be able to beat somebody like Dan Argueta. And not sure if I've seen enough from Matsumoto to rely on, what he's shown us so far. So for me, it's a dog or pass spot, but a pass spot ultimately.
Yeah, man. I'm pretty much reiterating what you think here as well. I feel like the line's a little bit too wide. I feel like if I had to make a pick, I'm going to side with Argueta as well. In his prime, 30 years old, man, fought some good names already. A couple UFC experience in tough. Typically he's outsized in his fights as well. Not going to be the case here. And especially at plus money, I don't mind backing somebody with the wrestling caliber that he has, somebody that's, pushes a pace the way he does. against a guy who I think is relatively unproven, especially at the highest level. His resume, not really the highest. I do like to see the fact that he's 6-0 in decisions. He's not out here dusting everybody in the first round. He has gone 15 minutes, has the ability to do so. But I just feel like he's just going to get tested here more than he ever has in his career. And you're right. Can't go out here and lay juice on someone who's relatively unproven. Feels dog or pass to me as well. But I feel like we've missed the best line on Argueta, so not really trying to force anything at this point. And it kind of goes for the same for the next fight, man. Taking a step down to women's strawweight. We got Cynthia Calvillo taking on Peira Rodriguez. It was another underdog that I kind of considered in Cynthia Calvillo, but I've missed out on the line. And I definitely don't want to force my hand on a girl who's lost 5 in a row, 37 years old. She quit on herself in between rounds in the KGB Lee fight. Yeah, that's too many red flags for me to try to back Cynthia Calvillo at this stage in her career. 115 she struggled with in the past. I do think that makes her be a little bit more disciplined. So that's nice to see. But I don't know, man. Peira Rodriguez doesn't really do it for me either. I don't really think the girl's that good anywhere. I don't think her cardio is the best. I don't think she has much off of her back. If Cynthia really wanted to come in here and use her grappling like she did when she first came into the UFC, I think she could run away with this fight. But at this point in her career, 9-6, 37 years old, it's another layoff spot for me. But I'm going to side with the underdog, Cynthia Calvillo.
Yeah, so I'm also going to side with the underdog, Cynthia Calvillo. And really my only reasoning is I think that she can get the grappling going. Like you said, it's never something that you want to play when she's 0-5 in her last 5, but the competition level is just so much different. You look at the wins that Peira Rodriguez has leading up to her last bout against Jillian Robertson, and if Sam Hughes is the highest caliber win that you're getting, it really doesn't tell you too much. She faces somebody like Jillian Robertson who has a specialty to her game, and she's clearly able to exploit it. I think that I'd probably line Calvillo at -125, and that's when I would be like hesitant to play it, knowing that she has all these similar to Lupita Godinez. It's just who's going to show up that night, and knowing that she has all the potential in the world, but she just might not use it for that night would be enough for me to not bet her as a favorite. But here, I think that she's probably 55, 56% in this position, and we're getting +110. So we're getting, a 7% edge. I think that probably qualifies for something that I'll take. So a unit on Cynthia Calvillo, just simply being the better MMA fighter. I think it's a plus EV play, although, you're kind of asking for it with low-level women's MMA, but at least you're getting a dog price here. So, that's how I break it down. It's not like with a ton of conviction. It's not going to be a 3-unit play, but I certainly think 1 unit is warranted here just with the plus money. Even if we did kind of miss the line, we only missed it by 10 points, 10, 15 points, something like that.
Nice. I like it.
Moving up to the bantamweight division again, we see Pedro Falcao stepping in on short notice to take on Victor Hugo. Hugo originally scheduled to fight Alateng Haley, who I thought was going to be a solid opponent against him, to be honest with you. I was excited for that fight to go down. This one, it seems like the odds makers still think that Hugo should have a slight advantage here. I'd have to do a little bit more research on Pedro Falcao to give you a solid read on him, but I do like the fact that even on a couple days' notice, they're almost making this even odds. So he's certainly somebody I got to keep my eye out on, because I think that Victor Hugo is a serviceable bantamweight. So,
yeah, I was just about to say something about Victor Hugo. I'm pretty sure I remember seeing him at one point at -150, -160 before a lot of money started coming in on Alateng, and here he is at -140 against a guy taking it on 2 or 3 days' notice, which kind of automatically draws my attention to him. Another thing, man, you look at Victor Hugo. 31 years old coming off the Contender Series. He's a guy who's in his prime right now. He's got 28 pro fights. You see 8 TKOs, 9 submissions, 7 decisions. Like he's winning every method. He's not a one-trick pony by no means. And I think, Pedro Falcao is good on the mat, but I just feel like he kind of stalls on the mat at points here. And if he's willing to take it to the mat here, I feel like he's kind of playing with fire with Victor Hugo, who's proved that he's opportunistic with the submissions. I think Victor Hugo's going to have a big cardio advantage here and also a big advantage on the feet as well. So I think I pretty confidently say Victor Hugo. It's one that I kind of want to look at Pedro Falcao a little bit more. The UFC didn't sign him, even though he got a 3rd-round finish on the Contender Series. So I feel like they're kind of bringing him in here to keep Victor Hugo on the card a little bit. So this is something I kind of want to do a little bit more digging on. But with the guy coming in on a couple days short notice, I feel like you could almost get to maybe 60% on Victor Hugo. So kind of eyeing that line a little bit, man.
This kind of reminds me of the Bernardo Senpai fight from a few weeks ago, where it's like, that's a really good guy, but ultimately him taking it on such short notice ended up being the deciding factor on whether or not he won that fight. So I certainly see how, even though this is a closely lined skill-wise fight, Hugo just being ready for this competition might be the deciding factor. Yeah.
This next fight, man, I think is a pretty solid fight at women's bantamweight. We got Norma Dumont taking on Germaine de Randamie. Man, a couple years ago, you see Germaine at plus 120, plus 130 against Norma Dumont, and you're laying the hammer on this card, man. But couple red flags. 40 years old this month, hasn't fought in almost 4 years. I believe she went and had a kid while she was off. It's just, you got to wonder how much that's really going to hinder her performance coming back here. I want to, I don't even want to say just the old Germaine de Randamie. I think even the one that's going to show up here on Saturday is so much faster than Norma Dumont as far as the hands go. She's far more technical on the feet. You see a girl with wins over Holly Holm, Juliana Pena, Raquel Pennington, like the last 3 champions besides Nunes of the division. And it's like, I don't know, man. It's almost kind of like the Cynthia Calvillo. It's hard for me to pass because I think she's a better fighter than Norma Dumont, truth be told. But I do feel like Norma might have the ability to find her way on top here and maybe not finish Germaine de Randamie, but just like win minutes, just stall her out, land a bunch of top control here. But we do see this at 135. Norma's last 3 have been at featherweight. She's missed the bantamweight limit, I think, 3 times now. So that's something you kind of got to keep an eye on as well. She got dropped with a 1-2 by Chelsea Chandler. You see that 1-2 be super crisp and knock Aspen Ladd out. Like, I think there's advantages for Germaine de Randamie in this fight. You see her lock up the ninja choke on a takedown attempt against Juliana Pena. That's like I said, man, if she wasn't coming off this massive layoff, having a kid, 40 years old, I'd really want to play this line. It still feels dog or pass to me, but I kind of got to lean Norma just with so many red flags on the GDR side, man. Any thoughts on it?
Yeah, I'm on the GDR side. I think that I'll probably end up playing her just straight up. You look at the state of the women's bantamweight division, and that's certainly the only storyline that makes sense to me. She's the one who beat the current champion. If I'm the UFC, I want Germaine de Randamie to be pushed just so we can sell some pay-per-views, or like put her on the co-main. And I think that that's certainly the best storyline. So just as far as what the UFC wants, I think that Germaine de Randamie is a solid choice. I think that her level of competition that she's fought is insane amounts different. To go from Chelsea Chandler to a former title challenger in Germaine de Randamie, that's that's as big of a step up as you could possibly get in the division. Chelsea Chandler runs away whenever she's getting outstruck. That's not going to happen with Germaine de Randamie. And it's not like if Norma had any finishing upside, I think that I, would maybe hold her a little bit higher, but she's yet to get a finish in the UFC. I don't think that the judges are going to be rewarding top time as much. And if Germaine de Randamie can make a case on the feet for landing a little bit more damage, I think the judges are going to give it to her. think that Dana's going to be whispering in their ears like, hey,
Mhm.
this fight makes sense. So, yeah, 40 years old with technique is still pretty young at women's bantamweight. Like I think she's still got some life to her. I think there's potential for a title run for Germaine de Randamie. It's a wide open division. And I got to imagine that lit a fire under her skin, knowing that she beat Raquel Pennington. Give me the dog shot, plus 126 on Germaine de Randamie right now. And I expect it to close, closer to evens. So, yeah.
I like it. I was just checking out
Germaine de Randamie back to back. What was that?
No, I said I was just looking at the lines as well for him. I might find myself on them as well, man. When I feel like they're the value side, it's hard to pass it up.
Yeah, hey, I'll talk you into them, dude. Come on, like I think that they're plus EV plays. So
good stuff.
Is it me now?
Yep, prelim main event.
Yikes. Okay, prelim main event. Court McGee taking on Alex Morono. I don't think that Alex Morono should be a minus 300 against anybody in the UFC. The wins that he is able to put together, Mickey Gall and aging Tim Means. He loses to Pons. The Joaquin Buckley fight you can forgive. I don't know. I think that if McGee hadn't gotten flatlined by Matt Brown in his last time out, this is a much closer fight. Much closer lined fight. Probably see Morono at minus 180, and I think that's probably where this line should be. So it's a dog or pass fight, but I have no interest in betting a 39-year-old coming off of a knockout loss, 2 knockout losses in his last losses.
Deaded knockout losses, man. Yeah. Slept bad.
Easy pass, but I do think the line's wide. So
I agree with you, man, on the line being wide, but I kind of feel pretty confident that Morono is going to walk away with this one. I was trying to look through and watch fights of Morono where he was neutralized on the mat, taken down a bunch, and I mean, there's not a lot of evidence of that, and I just truly feel like that's Court McGee's path to victory here is to try to ground Alex Morono. I think he'll struggle with the activity, the volume of Morono. He's deceptively quick, man. He's got a weird boxing style where he's bouncing in and out early, pretty accurate with his shots. 4 of his last 5 wins, he's racked up over 90 significant strikes. Volumes there, black belt on the mat. And when I look at a guy like Court McGee, there's a clear decline in durability, man. Of the last 4 losses that he's had, he's been knocked down in 2 of them that went to decision, KO'd bad in 2 of the other ones. And again, I just don't think he has much for Alex on the feet. And there's not a lot of evidence that Alex can be taken down and grounded. And like you talked about, man, 39 years old. I think at one point he was talking about training with the 16-year-old son in his garage or something. Not a lot of love for me on the Court McGee side. So line probably wide, but I'm on Alex Morono pretty clearly here. Starting off the main card with an absolute banger, man, between Trevor Peek and Charlie Campbell at 155. A lot of money on Charlie Campbell. And to an extent, I kind of agree. I feel like he's the better fighter. But Trevor Peek's a dog, man. And it almost reminds me a little bit of like Nate Landwehr last week. It's like you got to put these guys away or they're going to keep coming. And to an extent, that can be Charlie Campbell's demise. He can get a little bit cocky, get a little bit reckless. And I just feel like Trevor Peek is the kind of guy that Charlie Campbell could struggle with. I feel Charlie would be probably a little bit smarter to mix in some grappling here if he could, to try to ground Trevor, suck some wind out of him. Chepe was able to eat shots in that fight that I was pretty shocked that he was able to eat after his record on the regional scene being knocked out so many times. I don't know, man. I'm kind of worried that Charlie Campbell might look good and then just get clipped here. So I feel like the value at this point is on Trevor Peek. Not a lot of technicality behind him, but a lot of dog behind him, man. He's a guy who'll fight for your money. Maybe a little bit biased being a Tennessee boy, missing out on making some money on Nate Landwehr last week. But I'm going to side with Trevor Peek, man. I think he's going to get a second round TKO after potentially getting his butt whooped up on in the first round.
Yeah, if you didn't mention it, I was gonna. I'll tell you why he's a dog, man. He's a Tennessee boy. And you don't get the luxury of the fight being even money. Fight doesn't go the distance like the Nate Landwehr fight last week. It's minus 500 not to go the distance.
Yeah.
Charlie Campbell, certainly the more technical. I think he's probably the more athletic fighter. But if he doesn't get him out, this is going to be a dog fight. And truthfully, I think that this is, you could draw a ton of parallels to this fight and the Chris Duncan fight. Duncan, so best of luck to anybody who wants to bet this fight, laying juice on Charlie Campbell, knowing that he gets a little, a little antsy when he's searching for that finish, and Trevor Peak being somebody who doesn't get finished, man. I'm certainly excited for it. I wish I could find a spot. I just don't know where that spot's going to be. Maybe, the Peak TKO is only plus 230, and I don't really like that. Campbell by decision plus 550. I'm looking at that. That's the best value on this fight.
I agree.
Peak doesn't get KO. They don't think that this is going to go to decision. Plus 300, fight goes to decision. I think that's another solid play. I think a lot of people are on the under, but both these guys are tough. And if Peak, so Charlie Campbell by decision plus 550. That'd be my play for this fight. I think Campbell's going to win. We'll be rooting for Peak.
100%.
Moving on to the heavyweight division, Lukasz Brzeski taking on Valter Walker, Johnny Walker's little brother.
Yeah.
Bigger than him.
Right.
Little brother.
Big little brother.
26, 6'6", 81-inch reach. That's
big dude.
I don't know, dude. He's a scary man. And for him to get his last win in the fourth round, tells me he's got a little bit of a gas tank on him too. Yeah. Doesn't have the knockout losses of his brother. I could only imagine genetics-wise, he's got all the athleticism in the world. I think Brzeski's a good enough punching bag to throw in against somebody and maybe put on a really good performance if Valter Walker is a decent enough fighter. We just saw Brzeski take the knockout loss to Waldo Cortez Acosta where his neck almost folded back. That was disgusting. It looked like Dominic Reyes, Yuri Prohaska.
You're right.
Yeah, that was gross. But this is obviously just a stepping stone fight. We got popped for steroids in his Contender Series win, and then 3 losses in a row to guys like Martin Boudet, Carl Williams, and Waldo Cortez Acosta. I think this is the most obvious setup spot on the card right now. And you can get Valter Walker at plus 238. Moving forward, that's going to be a parlay piece for me. I think that's it sucks that it's low-level heavyweights, and ultimately, if it bites me in the ass, I deserve it. But this is the obvious setup spot right here. Why wouldn't the UFC want Valter Walker, Johnny Walker's little brother, in the UFC? Brzeski's one of the best options for him. So, yeah. Walker, I think he's a good parlay piece.
I like it, yeah. I'm on the Valter Walker side. It's pretty crazy to see a 75% price tag on him, but I think in hindsight, he is going to look like a pretty big favorite here. Brzeski, you talked about the USADA pop. Clear evidence, man. You see his pictures of the guy prior to coming into the UFC, and then in the UFC, lost a lot of the muscle, doesn't carry the same physique or anything. He did go a hard 15 minutes with Boudet, likely getting robbed in that fight. So that was pretty impressive, but I just feel like the style of fight that Valter Walker is going to bring here is much more like the Carl Williams fight where, I think Carl Williams, I don't want to call him a light heavyweight, but I think he's a bit undersized for a heavyweight. And once he gets the fight down, he doesn't offer much finishing ability from top, whereas Valter Walker, much bigger natural heavyweight, and I feel like once he gets Lukasz Brzeski down, I feel like he has a ton more finishing upside. Submission, ground and pound. I've taken the under 2.5 here at minus 155, I think. And we talked about some, action on the over 1.5. And when you watch the Carl Williams fight, it kind of does make sense. But I do think Valter Walker has so much more finishing upside in this fight than Carl Williams does. And I feel like once he gets it down, I wouldn't be shocked if he gets a first-round finish, man. I think Valter Walker covers the price tag here potentially.
Found the parlay piece, Valter Walker and Melissa Mullins, minus 120. I think I'm okay with just putting 1.25 units on that. Calling it a day right there.
Yeah. Big ground upside on both of those people.
Yeah.
Moving on up, man. Ignacio Bahamondes, Christos Giagos at 155. I do favor Bahamondes, but ultimately I had some action on him. Round 2 and 3 props here, and the under 2.5. Although I favor Bahamondes, I was not really excited to see minus 200 something next to his name when you've been outstruck by McDessie, when you've been out grappled by Klein. Like I've seen this guy been beat in 2 different ways. I don't think he wears damage that well. At the same time, extremely hittable. And early on in this fight, man, Christos Giagos is a pretty dangerous guy. He's big power, swings heavy. I do think as tough as Ignacio is, man, if Giagos lands one of the big overhands clean, I think he has KO power in this fight. And I do think he's live to win round 1 with even a lot of wrestling in the early going. But he's notorious, man, for dropping off a cliff in the second and third round. And if Ignacio is able to survive, I think that's exactly what happens again here. I took a couple 2 and 3 shots last week. I think Ignacio's super live to finish Christos Giagos. I know striking's his game, but as tall as he is, I think Christos might get a little tired, shoot a sloppy takedown, and I think he might get his neck snatched here. So Ignacio round 2 submission, how I think fight's going to play out.
Yeah, Giagos, in my head, he's kind of like Andre Petroski. Just early on, he fucking throws hard, he squeezes hard, all that good stuff. And I like the under as my favorite bet that you've made on this fight. Is I like the under because we have seen plenty of times Giagos just fall off a cliff if he can't find that early finish. And Ignacio pushes a decent enough pace. It's not that he has crazy knockout power or really like crazy submission skills in my head. It's just that he brings that, that I don't know, just like that South American pressure. He breaks
that immigrant mentality.
Yeah, the immigrant mentality. Thank you. I was trying not to get canceled there, man. But I do think that he'll bring the pressure to eventually break Giagos. So I like the under on that fight the most. There's enough potential for me in my head that Giagos gets an early finish that I'll probably end up laying off the 2 and 3 round shots. But I am curious, what numbers do you get that at?
What's that? The round 2?
Yeah, the Bahamondes round 2 and 3. What kind of numbers would you get on that?
I think it was 500 and 750.
Yeah, that. Yeah, I think those are good bets, but I don't know if I'll end up finding myself on them. But I do see a lot of upside for a late finish for Bahamondes here. I think he's the rightful favorite. Probably wouldn't play him straight. As juiced as he is right now.
Right.
Moving up. Down in weight class, up the card, Morgan Charriere taking on Chepe Mariscal. I'm a Chepe Mariscal fan, man. He's 15-6 record. Doesn't sound like much, but he's got a great camp up there at Elevation Fight Team. He's now 2-0 in the UFC. Went up a weight class on short notice to fight Trevor Peek, and that he made me a fan. I'm a fan of Trevor Peek, and when you fight at someone like that, up a weight class on short notice, give him the first L of his career. That's pretty awesome, dude. I do like Chepe. And then we get to see him at his actual weight class beat one of the, I don't know, in my opinion, one of the more hyped prospects in the division in Jack Jenkins. And that was in Australia, right? He went to Australia to do that?
Yeah, it was an injury, though.
Yeah. Either way, I don't feel like they're doing him very many favors. Trevor Peek up a weight class and then Jack Jenkins. They're not doing him favors, and he's still getting these W's. Morgan Charriere, in my opinion, one of the easier fights of his career. So I agree with the line movement. I talked to you earlier. I thought that Chepe plus 145, I about jumped on that this week, and I'm kind of kicking myself that I didn't. But hell, looking at it, there are only 2 books that have him at plus money still. And I think that plus money Chepe is a solid bet. That is just like Nate Landwehr. It's just like Trevor Peak. Plus money, dog, give me it.
Yeah. I think I'm going to be on the other side here with you, man. Maybe one of the first real disagreements of the card. One thing that I do like to see, I know you don't like to see 15 combined losses between the two guys, but you look through every one of their guys' losses, and a lot of them are very notable names, guys who have made it to the UFC. On the regional scene, these guys never said no to a tough fight. Dude, is it Chepe? And maybe somebody from last week, but Chepe's got a super solid win on his record, I thought.
Yusuf Zalal, Pat Sabatini.
That's what it was. Pat Sabatini and Zalal. You see him fighting like Gregor Gillespie just a couple fights into his career. I mean, never saying no to a hard fight whatsoever.
How does Morgan Charriere do against Joe Anderson Brito or Bryce Mitchell or Gregor Gillespie?
I know.
Just the experience being in there. Oh, man, I'm on Chepe. I like Chepe. Sorry.
I just I think he's outclassed pretty good on the feet here, and I don't know if I like his ability to be able to ground Morgan here. I think Morgan's way cleaner on the feet, sharper, way faster. I think he's a much more athletic guy here, and for what a fight that I think is largely going to play out on the feet, I've been monitoring this one, man. If it gets plus money, he's been the side that I've kind of leaned all week, even at the plus or the minus 130. I don't know, man. I don't necessarily want to force a play when I see some respectable people. Usually the line movement is sharp. Like, I'd say 7 out of 10 times. A lot of time the line movement is warranted. And to see what I think is probably a lot of sharp money on Chepe, a guy who will fight for your money, like you said, cash as a dog before, it does kind of make me shy away. But again, I kind of see the fight largely playing out on the feet, and I do think Morgan's got a pretty clear advantage there. So I'm gonna side with the Frenchman, Morgan Charriere, however you pronounce that one there. Moving,
fight goes to decision. I don't think either one of these guys. Yeah, there's one loss by submission on Morgan Charriere's record. Chepe doesn't get finished, and you're getting like a minus 170 price tag.
I saw somebody play that earlier today.
I don't hate that. And we're trying to hit those overs a little bit more. I think that that's a decent fight. Death, taxes, featherweight overs. Solid.
I don't think the next featherweight fight here is going to hit the over. Co-main event, we got Alexander Hernandez taking on Damon Jackson. Battle of the shitty gas tanks here, man. I can't. Damon Jackson's gas tank has not impressed me whatsoever. But it's hard for me not to think that Alexander Hernandez getting down to 145 from what he's shown me already, it's hard for me to believe that he's going to have much after round 1, truth be told, man. The guy's lost like 5 of his last 8 fights. The 3 wins that he has are less than impressive, besides maybe the Jim Miller one there. But as far as skill set, man, he is the way better fighter, way better striker, way better chin. Younger, faster, way more explosive, man. If he able to keep this fight on the feet, he's very live to put Damon Jackson away in our early going here. But Jackson's kind of got a grinding style, one that, averages over 2 and almost 2.5 takedowns per 15 minutes. I think mixing it up well would serve him well here. And he's a guy that, they call him the leech for a reason. When he gets your back, when he gets you down, he can cling to you, man. And I do feel like if he's there in 2 or 3, he might be live to finish Alexander Hernandez. But I actually think more times than not, we're going to see Alexander get him out of there probably in under 1.5 rounds. So I think Alexander Hernandez inside the distance is probably how I'm leaning here. I do have some action on the under 2.5, though, at like minus 165.
Yeah, so Alexander Hernandez inside the distance plus money. That's the way to go. I meant to look up to see if he – yeah, okay. So he's got like half his wins by decision, but the guys that he's going to decision with don't get finished very often, where I feel like Damon Jackson, when he gets finished, he dies.
Yeah.
And it's always just the most horrific way. And it just seems like Alexander Hernandez has got that type of explosivity to really exploit his suspect chin, you know? So yeah, plus money Alexander Hernandez. I think that he wins inside the distance like upwards of 80% of the time if he's fighting someone like Damon Jackson. So yeah, Hernandez inside the distance plus 105, something like that. It's probably where I'll play it. Don't know if I'll actually get on it, but that's how I'd play it, and I'm picking him to win. I think Damon Jackson's not good. Like, he's serviceable, but he's 35 years old, and he's kind of one-dimensional in my opinion. Hernandez, in theory, at 31 years old, should be hitting that peak. But damn, they keep giving him like, oh my gosh, the Bill Algeo, Jim Miller, Billy Quarantillo, like they all kind of have the same shtick, It's like they're able to outwork you, not get finished, and Damon Jackson kind of fits under that banner, but he does get finished. So I'm really banking that Alexander Hernandez can kind of turn his career around a little bit, get this W over Damon Jackson. Let's see. Moving on to the main event in the middleweight division, Brendan Allen taking on Chris Curtis. I certainly see a ton of Chris Curtis love this week for the line to just stay plus 175 the entire week. I understand not wanting to bet minus 200 or more on Brendan Allen. He's never been one of those guys that I've thought has a high fight IQ. But he's certainly, somebody I'd love to put dog money on. He fights for your dollar. He's pretty well-rounded. Got a really sneaky submission game. It seems like he likes to get things done on the feet in the UFC. But, man, when he gets it to the ground, he looks good. His submission game is good. It's lethal. And I think that Chris Curtis, he's, shown some holes in his grappling. He hasn't been submitted, but I'm not sure that he's had somebody as good as Brendan Allen on the ground. So I'm kind of speaking blindly about that, but I've seen Chris Curtis get ups and he'll give his back, and Brendan Allen's so long and good on the ground that if he does get on the back, he could certainly lock something in. Allen submission is only plus 175. Terrible line. We were talking earlier, I'd need to see like plus 275, plus 300, something like that before I even thought about playing it. This is a layoff spot. I'm picking Brendan Allen. But, Chris Curtis training with Sean O'Malley, maybe they got the blueprint.
Sean Strickland.
Sean Strickland. Maybe they got the blueprint over there. So,
well, last time Sean was in the corner of Chris Curtis, like, I'm talking to Brendan Allen during the fight shit. So, that could be the case.
They're fired up about this one.
100%, man. And, if Brendan Allen wins this one, it kind of puts him in line to maybe get another redemption shot, and Sean Strickland puts himself right into the top 5, top 6 of the division.
That's a good bounce back spot for Strickland too.
100%. I think I'm on the Allen side as well, man. Just definitely not going to be laying the price. He's won 6 straight, hasn't lost since the Chris Curtis fight. He's finished 5 of those wins. And, man, he's in the prime of his career. He's at 28 years old. I've always kind of felt like there's going to come a time where Brendan Allen turns the corner, finally starts putting everything together. And it could be right now, man. He, like I said, prime of his career at 28 years old. I think he's getting a whole lot better on the feet. Excellent submission grappler, 14 submissions. He loves getting to the back and finishing with the rear naked choke. And another guy, you even look back to when he's super young at 22, 23 years old, like he's fighting Eric Anders, Fluffy Hernandez. Like he's always been fighting good guys. And then when I look at who he's lost to since coming into the UFC was Sean Strickland, which was a fight that he was supposed to fight Ian Heinisch a week prior, loses that fight, and then takes a short notice fight up at 195. So, granted, there's just an asterisk there a little bit, and then the next loss is Chris Curtis, where he was supposed to fight Brad Tavares. He was supposed to fight Roman Dolidze, and then Chris Curtis comes in here on short notice. So it's like Brendan Allen, when he's had the game plan and been able to prepare for guys, he's come through, man. But Chris Curtis is stepping in again on short notice, looking to play spoiler again, man. He's a super good counter boxer. If you're just willing to box with Chris Curtis, you got to be careful, man. He rips the body. He's got sneaky power. I've seen him get frustrated at range, and I feel like if Brendan Allen is not a bonehead in this fight, he can throw kicks from the outside. He can use his jab, but it's just hard, man. Brendan Allen loves to – it's like he thinks he's John Jones and can fight these guys where they're best at, you know? It's like he doesn't want to use what he's good at. And I do feel like I'm a bit worried about his wrestling, but if he were to find a way to get Chris Curtis down, I could see a backpack where he rides out the whole round and wins. But then again, I'm pretty sure I'd watched this fight a couple days ago, but he's winning round one pretty clearly and then dives for like a straight ankle lock or something and gets reversed. Chris Curtis winds up on top for like the last 40 seconds and steals the round. So it's like he just refuses to fight smart. And before I go lay minus 250, 220 on a guy, I got to see him fight smart. And then underdogs, won 7 out of our 11 main events so far this year. I just laid juice in the main event last week, and it looked like one of the worst bets I've ever made, 50-45 in my opinion. So, yeah, I'm real hesitant to lay the juice here on Brendan Allen despite being the pick this week, man. I think he's going to get it done. I'm actually looking at – I love playing goes the distance for these middleweights, and it's only plus 150, which kind of sucks. But I wouldn't be shocked if we see this go the full distance, man. At least hit an over 2.5, 3.5, or something.
Which I am kind of curious how this fight plays out in those championship rounds. You know, Curtis has been in a 5-round fight before, got stopped in the 4th doctor stoppage, and the type of pace that Brendan Allen puts on people. You know, I wonder if there's any value on Allen inside the distance. Like, I just don't see him. I see him losing a whole lot of rounds because of stupid decisions more than I see him winning extended amounts of rounds and banking on judges' scorecards. You know what I'm saying?
No, I'm with you. It's hard to get behind Brendan Allen at this price tag, man. It really is. But I think he's going to be the pick for me too. I really wish there was
plus 130 inside the distance. Damn, you're having to play minus 200 for fight doesn't go to decision. In this one, you get plus 168 for fight goes to decision.
I love my middleweight overs in the Apex. Seem like they hit at a 85% clip these days. So I don't know if I have any action on the main event. I've been pretty shitty on my main event reads. Just looking back at who I've bet in Blanchfield and Gaziev, and I'm sure I could look at some others. I've laid some juice and cost myself in main events this year. So trying to refine it, hone in on where I've been having some strengths this year, man.
I feel you.
13 fights, ran through them all, man. Relatively good card, like I said. You know, I feel like we're in tune for some violence this week. Truth be told, I think there's some really good fights on this card, even though this fight card's going underneath the radar. Kind of prepping us for UFC 300 next week, which is from top to bottom. Incredible. I think there's more than 10 former champions or current champions on the card. Super excited to break down UFC 300 with you next week, man. We'll see y'all then.
Peace.